Talking Rams starting lineups, who's going to be in the queue, next year's free agents, and that time the Rams traded for Henry Childs. You might not remember him, but Rams fans may. I'm Joe Terosian and live from the Ram Cave. This is RamView, the Cinco de Mayo, May the 5th edition of 2022. Actually, it's so interesting. I think I started doing this right after the Super Bowl. I think I'm closing in on 3 months. It's been a lot of fun and happy to be here. And one of the things I thought it was time to look at is now that most of the free agency period is over, the heavy hitters are signed, and that the Rams have already made their draft picks, said c'est la vie to a number of players, brought one player back, Troy Hill. It's time to look at maybe the starting lineup, projected starters, likely starters. And that's really an interesting thing these days because it's all about personnel, right? You know, it's are you going 11? Are you going 12? You know, you got to go 12 being double tights. What are you going to do? Well, what is your package? And so the idea of who a starter is has been really cut down. You know, most of your 5 offensive linemen, your number 1 receiver, and your quarterback are the guys that are out there. Everyone else is really almost interchangeable parts. Defensive line, there's Aaron Donald, there's rotations. The linebacking position has been completely carved up. The idea of middle linebackers existing anymore in the middle linebacker traditional sense, the Ray Nitschke, Dick Butkus, Jack Lambert, Jack Reynolds sense, that's kind of been blown up. They're called off-ball linebackers, and outside linebackers, depending on your scheme, they're called edge players, right? They hold the edge and they rush from the edge, right? And so Aaron Donald's been a DT for most of his career, but in this scheme the Rams play, he's listed as a defensive end. Not Michael Brockers, but Ashawn Robinson was listed as a defensive end, and these guys are classic DTs. But the world has changed so much. The nickelback was a backup. Now the nickelback, in most cases, is always a starter. Just a different world. So I thought it would be good if we just looked at some of the Rams starting lineup here and kind of go from there. And also, I wanted to hit on who are going to be the free agents that the Rams are going to be on the line to either keep or let walk heading into 2023. And it's a pretty significant bunch. There's every team has a lot of free agents because there's the 1-year tenders, there's the practice squad players, but there's about 14 guys that the Rams are going to have. There's the word again. The Rams are going to have hit free agency. They're going to see significant playing time. So it'd be good to go over those things and measure them out. So for the record, I'm Joe Terosian. I am a sports writer. I pastor a small church in Burbank. You can read my books find my books on Amazon.com. Some of you have, and I want to say thank you. Some of you have subscribed here. I want to say thank you. If you leave comments, hit like, share, blast this thing all over the place. Really want to have a good time as we head into this 2022 season talking Ram football. And hey, when I come to talk, it's free, right? There you go. You get what you pay for. So talking Rams football, talking about who the starters are. Well, the most less discussed starter that doesn't need to be discussed too much is Matthew Stafford. The great thing about Matthew Stafford is that by and large, through most of his career, as he took that beating in Detroit, that extended beating, by and large, he was always on the field. He was on the field last year. And there were moments last year where you're watching the team and you kind of look sideways at a friend that you may be watching the game with, a friend that's hip to the game, and you say, he doesn't look right. And there were times that you knew Stafford played through stuff. So you know he's going to go out there hurt. And he's playing all 6-17 unless an injury happens. And that's where I think the Rams are most vulnerable. You may like the Wolf, John Wolford. I think we saw the best of the Wolf a couple years ago in week 17 against the Cardinals at home. I just don't believe in him down the road. But apparently the Rams do. So I am worried if something should happen to Stafford. And then of course there's Bryce Perkins, who you'd like to see move to the second. I'd like to see move to the second spot because I think he has more upside, but we'll see about that. But Stafford is the established starter. At running back, it's clear that Cam Akers is the established starter with Darrell Henderson getting significant touches and likely this year, Kyrene Williams out of Notre Dame getting significant touches because he's efficient in the pass game. He can pick up the blocks. That's what Sony Michel did so well last year. people forget is that on the deep pass to Cooper Kupp in the divisional playoff game in Tampa Bay, that it was Sony Michel that picked up the block on the blitz, on the messed up blitz by Tampa. And apparently Sony Michel's not going to be back. But Kyren Williams, that's one of his gifts, and the Rams will probably be utilizing it. So expect Akers to be the feature as much as possible. Henderson splashed in, and maybe just a little bit of Kyren. But, of course, that'll change as the season goes on because everyone's going to get nicked up. The only thing to consider is this is Darrell Henderson's fourth year. He is a free agent after this season. His market value is 6.6 rocks, according to SpotTrack.com. And I do not see the Rams paying Darrell Henderson 6.6 mil to keep him yearly in the fold. So this will be probably Darrell Henderson's last ride with the Rams. And I expect them to use him as much as they can and get every bit they can because Darrell Henderson is a quality back. Wide receiver, we know there's Cooper Kupp, there's Allen Robinson, there's the Van Jefferson. Boom, we got that. But in the queue there, I'm going to list OBJ because I think OBJ is coming back. I just think they're waiting for the right time to sign him. So we got OBJ. You got Ben Skoranek, big receiver. Tutu Atwell, who would be labeled a burner, not a bust yet. Label him a burner. Jacob Harris, big receiver. A guy named Warren Jackson that is a big receiver. And then another one named Lance McCutcheon, who was an undrafted free agent that the Rams added to their post-draft signings. And everyone's in love with him because he's huge too. And the one thing you notice here is that OBJ is an excellent receiver, but he's not necessarily a burner anymore. The closest thing to burners the Rams have are Tutu Atwell and Van Jefferson. And so I think that creates a bit of a role for Tutu Atwell this year when somebody needs to go streaking downfield. But the other thing the Rams, what you have, you got Cooper Kupp, he's unto himself. Robinson is Allen Robinson is a big receiver. Skoranek is a big receiver, but not necessarily a big pass catcher. Jacob Harris was to be that big guy last year, if you remember, the kind of light tight end, wide out, and that whole Bryson Hopkins type of deal that we saw in the Super Bowl. Warren Jackson is somebody that the Rams picked up that was in the Denver camp last year, and he's got great size, and he's a guy that can go up and get the ball. Lance McCutcheon is somebody who basically his draft profile says his hands are a little bit suspect. He doesn't have a second gear. He's kind of slow. Doesn't really project as a special team guy, but he's about 6'3", 220 right now. And big guy, he contests really well for catches, and he seems to do that. He might have some brain lapses during regular routes, but when he has to contest for the ball. And so between those guys, and of course Cooper Kupp is Cooper Kupp, the Rams seem to have this penchant for big receivers. The one thing that doesn't grade out well on McCutcheon is, which besides having a great last name, but what doesn't grade out well for him, he's not a good blocker. And I'm telling you, Ben Skoranek saw time on the field not only because of attrition last year, but it wasn't because of his hands. He saw time on the field because he could block. And that is a key thing for the Rams. That's not Allen Robinson's best gift either. And it's a place where the Rams will miss a Robert Woods. But it looks like Kupp, Robinson, and Jefferson. Tight ends, Higbee, Blanton, who will be, I think, a free agent next year as well. And of course, Kendall Blanton and Bryson Hopkins, who kind of came alive in the Super Bowl, who did come alive in the Super Bowl. The Rams didn't draft a tight end. You're seeing Roger Carter, who was an undrafted free agent. You see him on that list, and he's listed in many places as a tight end, H-back, fullback. And I would not expect him necessarily to be a tight end, so to speak, but he's somebody that can fill that role. If you remember what a classic H-back was, that's what Roger Carter will fill. I don't expect him to be getting many snaps at tight end. Along the line, we know Joseph Noteboom is solid and locked in at left tackle for the next few years. But left guard David Edwards is a free agent, Wisconsin guy. And, oh my, I need my cough button. Wisconsin guy, and he's a free agent after this year. So he's one guy that's up. Brian Allen's at center. He's locked in for the next couple of years. So he'll be back. But you got Bobby Evans right now, and some places are listing Bobby Evans as the starter at right guard. It's probably a little bit wiser to think Coleman Shelton. Bobby Evans has had his shot. Bobby Evans is going to have to do something truly amazing to get into this competition because Bobby Evans just has not performed well. He had a shot at this same position a year ago when Austin Corbett was going to play center, and he just wasn't very good. And so even before I think camp started in July, that whole experiment ended, and it was Corbett back to guard and Brian Allen at center, and maybe that was the plan all along. But the Rams re-signed Coleman Shelton for a reason, and it's not just to be a caddy to Brian Allen, but they're looking at him at right guard. Now with the drafting of Logan Bruss obviously, it was another Wisconsin guy. It's a theme here. You could look for him to compete for that spot easily. You could see Logan Bruss competing. The odd guy out in that group is Bobby Evans, who, by the way, is a free agent after this year. Right tackle has been manned by the same guy out of Wisconsin since 2015, and that's Rob Havenstein. Rob Havenstein is going to be a free agent. Now, if you look on his contract, you go online, you might see 2024 also listed there, but in all the restructures, that last year of his, or 2023, but that last year of his contract is void. They voided it, and so he becomes a free agent at the end of this upcoming season, and his market value is 9.8 rocks, so roughly 10 rocks. I don't know what the Rams are going to do. Where is he going to be at the end of this year? 7 years as a starter. This will be his 8th year as a starting right tackle for the Rams. That's a heck of a run for a guy that was, second or third round draft pick. Great call, great draft pick. I think he's very underrated in terms of the success that the Rams have had with him at right tackle. In the queue, of course, we talked about the guards, Coleman Shelton, Logan Bruss. Alaric Jackson is somebody the Rams do like, and so he played well last year. He's somebody that could fit in maybe to that right tackle spot. Remember, he filled in at left tackle last year. And, of course, they drafted the kid out of Michigan State. What's his name? A.J. Arcuri. And I don't know how to pronounce his name. Arcuri. Yeah, they drafted A.J. Arcuri out of Michigan State. He's big, but he's viewed as more of a project. But 3 free agents along the line, 2 of them matter. David Edwards, Rob Havenstein, Bobby Evans. And so that's where the Rams are with their offensive line. It's in good shape. Defensive line, we kind of talked about that, how it's a little bit different these days, but your front 3 are Aaron Donald, Greg Gaines, A'Shawn Robinson. Book it, all cool, great, we're set. In the rotation, you got guys like Jonah Williams, Bobby Brown III has to show up, Marcus Copeland, Mike Hecht. Copeland and Hecht, I didn't list them in the free agent list because they haven't received significant playing time yet. They've gotten some playing time because Greg Gaines and A'Shawn Robinson are also free agents. And the book on A'Shawn Robinson is that he's expected to make, or his market value is at about what he's making right now, 8 rocks a year. And I can see the Rams keeping one of them, Greg Gaines or A'Shawn, but one of them I think is going to go because Bobby Brown, the Rams did not draft another DT, did they? They did not draft a DT in this draft. They picked up Elijah Garcia, undrafted free agent out of Rice, but they didn't draft another DT, which means I think they still believe in Bobby Brown, and Bobby Brown got some snaps last year, and I would expect him to be in the rotation this year, especially if either Gaines or Robinson are expected to hit the street after the 2022 season. At edge, which used to be called the outside linebacker, right? Leonard Floyd and Justin Hollins. Justin Hollins is going to be a free agent after this year. In the queue are Terrell Lewis, Chris Garrett. A guy that we haven't talked about because he did not see the field last year is Ernest Brown IV. He was drafted, I think, by the Rams in the 5th round last year. I'm trying to remember. And he was drafted after Bobby Brown, Robert Rochelle. He was in that group. And Ernest Brown IV, he's an edge player. We haven't really seen him. And then, of course, the Nelson Spruce candidate is Daniel Hardy, the 7th round pick out of Montana State. It's interesting that Daniel Hardy out of Montana State, Lance McCutcheon teammates out of Montana State, is that they likely saw one or the other as they were doing their scouting. They said, oh, this guy's available. Let's grab him. Let's grab his partner. But Justin Hollins is going to have to do something really special. I think he can be special, but chances are he is going to go as a free agent next year. And what a great investment. Rams picked him up off of waivers from the Broncos. And if he ends up having a decent year signing someplace else, the Rams picked up a draft pick for that. So it was a good investment and good development. At linebacker, Bobby Wagner, Ernest Jones. It's a little thin here. Next in the queue is Traven Howard, who we like, Christian Roseboom, special teamer, and the undrafted free agent that really looks like he's going to have a shot at not only making the team, but maybe eventually getting snaps on defense is Iowa State linebacker Jake Hummel. And it's not uncommon for the Rams to have an undrafted free agent play some off-ball linebackers. Think of Troy Reeder. And so keep an eye on Jake Hummel, but it's Bobby Wagner, Ernest Jones's job right now. At cornerback, Jalen Ramsey. Boom, we're done. Okay. And then everybody else, honestly, including Troy Hill, to me, it's up in the air. We're going to see how much does Troy Hill have in the tank. What outside of being familiar with the culture, being a veteran, I don't know physically Troy Hill is any better than David Long, Robert Rochelle, or the two rookies, Jacoby Durant or Darian Kendrick. And so I struggle when I hear he's going to be an automatic starter. So be thinking in terms of a lot of rotation there. David Long Jr. will be a free agent, as will Troy Hill after this year. And the Rams got Troy Hill at a great price. I'm not against them bringing in Troy Hill. It's just to project him as the other guy alongside Jalen Ramsey. I just think it's a little premature. And so we'll see what happens with these draft picks and who the Rams took at that cornerback position, because it's really in flux. At safety, I got to believe it is Jordan Fuller and Nick Scott. I do not see Taylor Rapp getting his job back. Taylor Rapp is a liability in coverage. He's such a liability in coverage that you got to kind of rotate him out. He's great in the box, right? Great up close to the line, great supporting the run. He'll lay the big hit, but he's constantly lost in coverage. And so I think Nick Scott, that's his spot until we see something out of Rapp that's different, or Terrell Burgess to break through, which time's running short for Terrell. And then, of course, the draft picks, Quentin Lake and Russ Yeast. And everybody thinking Quentin Lake is going to step up. I like Quentin Lake. I like his genes. I like where he came from. Anybody that's drafted for the Rams on their draft board from 1 to 7, from 2 to 7, from 3 to 7, any of them are viewed as people that could potentially start for the Rams. And so I wouldn't write off Lake and Yeast. But it'll be interesting to see, would the Rams go with 6 safeties on their active roster? And that's kind of tough to see. A couple of these guys, one of them might end up on a practice squad. Another one might get dealt during the summer. And Nick Scott and Taylor Rapp are free agents. You got Matt Gay, Riley Dixon right now at punter. And they're going to be free agents at the end of this year. And so is the long snapper, Matt Orzek out of APU. We saw him play in college. Matt Orzek, he's done a great job. You know how you know he's done a great job? Because you never hear his name. Jake McQuaid was with the Rams for a decade. You never hear his name. And now Orzek's the long snapper, and he'll be a free agent after this year. And it'll be interesting to see what the Rams do, because you don't want to pay a whole lot for that position. But you also want to make sure there's no drama at that position. Rams signed Montana State wide receiver Lance McCutcheon. We talked about that. No relation I'm seeing to Lawrence McCutcheon. But I've seen him listed between 6'3", 200 pounds, 6'3", 220. That's how big he is. And they like it. They like that size. Reminder again, the draft picks were Logan Bruss, Jacoby Durant out of South Carolina State, Kyrene Williams, Notre Dame, Quentin Lake, UCLA, Darian Kendrick, Georgia, Daniel Hardy, Montana State, Russ East, Kansas State, and AJ Akiri out of Michigan State. Those guys are all likely to make the roster, or at the very minimum, hit practice squad. Yeast and Akiri, I'm thinking, are two guys that might need that time. We're looking at the free agents they signed. I mentioned Roger Carter out of Georgia State. There was also another tight end signed named Jamal Pettigrew out of McNeese State. Another guard, Jack Snyder, San Jose State. We mentioned Jake Hummel. Some linebackers, which I think are roster fillers that I would really be surprised if you saw any of them on the field or anywhere but practice squad, or even if they make the practice squad. Braden Thomas, North Dakota State. Benton Wiley, Holy Cross. Andres Hughes Murray, Oregon State. Keir Thomas, Florida State. Dion Novel at North Texas is in the interior defensive lineman. We mentioned Elijah Garcia. TJ Carter out of TCU at corner. Caesar Dancy Williams is a cornerback out of Wisconsin that the Rams signed, and he was a teammate of guess who? Logan Bruss at Wisconsin. Deron Lowe, Jerry McVay. I'm just throwing names out here. Dan Ice in Washington State. And the only one that kind of seems there is Cameron Dicker, who was a combination punter kicker for Texas. I think he's going to have to do a lot to displace Riley Dixon. The Rams have invested a little bit in Riley Dixon, but it's not anything they can't walk away from. But I do believe most of these players' names, I just ran off them real quick as we hit the 20-minute mark, are going to hit practice squad. All right, as we come close to the close here, on this date in 1981, the Rams traded the second-round pick, third-round pick at that time. It was second round in these days. Now it's and it was third round. Rams traded the number 61 overall, the number 172 overall to the Washington Redskins for tight end Henry Childs. And if you're a Ram fan from the 70s, Henry Childs was a pretty good tight end for the New Orleans Saints. Originally drafted by the Falcons, he was fifth round in 74 out of Kansas State. He played 9 years in the NFL. And that rookie year, he was dealt to the Saints. Or actually, he was waived, and the Saints signed him. And he was a starter for the Saints for 6 years, made a Pro Bowl. He even had a pair of 50-catch seasons, which in the 70s, for anybody to have a 50-catch season, it meant you had a good season. A season between 40 and 50 was a good year for any kind of receiver. If you were in the 50s, you were going to the Pro Bowl, or you were talked about as some of the best. That's the way the stats worked in the 70s, because everything was the running game, right? And career-wise, Henry Childs, if he played this day and age, he'd probably be moved wide out a little bit from the line. He averaged 15 yards a catch for a tight end. That is just an enormous. You got wide receivers now that don't average anything close to that. But as a tight end, he averaged 15 yards a catch in his run. So he was traded to the Rams, and the Rams were in flux at tight end. As the 70s rolled on, you remember there was Bob Klein and Pat Kern and Terry Nelson, and Kern got traded to the Chargers. Then Bob Klein retired after I think it was 76 season, and then got dealt to the Chargers when he kind of came back. And the Rams still had Terry Nelson, and Terry Nelson was the starter for a couple years. They brought in Charlie Young. Charlie Young had been a tight end at USC, all-pro in Philly, kind of wore out in Philly because they stopped having a quarterback who could get him the ball. And so Vermeil moved him to the Rams for Ron Jaworski. But Charlie Young remained a backup with the Rams behind Terry Nelson. Terry Nelson was the Rams starting tight end up through 1979. He made catches in the Super Bowl. But then by 1980, he was pretty much done, and they had Victor Hicks and Walt Arnold. And after the 1980 season, those guys were gone. So the Rams were really thin at receiver, at tight end, and they made this deal where they gave a third and I think a fifth for Henry Childs. Childs played 7 games for the Rams, caught 12 passes, and then on a game against Dallas, I think he tore his Achilles. I think it was the Achilles he tore. I can't remember. He got hurt and was lost for the season, and the Rams ended up releasing him in 1982 in the cutdowns that August. But I just thought it was interesting that you would never – there are just players that you see play. They play against the Rams forever, and then they pop up, and they were with the Rams, and I think people forget. I think people forget the Rams had Lydell Mitchell for a while. I think they do. I think the Rams fans forget a lot of these players that kind of came in for a cup of coffee at the end of their career. But I thought it was interesting how the Rams kept searching for a tight end, and they kept searching until I think it was in 82 they finally made the deal for Mike Barber. I think that was a mid-season deal. Then John Robinson brought in David Hill, and then eventually Damone Johnson came in, and the Rams never really developed that great pass-catching tight end. It was always the tight end that was the blocking guy, the guy that blocked. So anyway, wanted to get that out there. I thought it was fun, a bit nerddom for me. But hey, you know what? I'm the guy that clicks on every day. I am the most loyal RamView follower. So I'm Joe Terosian. Thank you so much for clicking on. If you have any questions or anything you want to talk about with Ram stuff, shoot them to me. I could use your subscribes. I could use your likes. I could use your comments, your sharing. Please do. It is fun to talk Ram football. We'll be talking more and more as we get deeper into OTAs and then minicamp and all that stuff. And we'll be talking NFL as well. I heard there might be some movement between Deebo Samuel and the 49ers and them getting right with the world. And so we'll see. All right. So great. Thank you so much for clicking on. I'm Joe Terosian, and thank you. Goodbye.